G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave Talk Stuff, Ukraine War Update for the 26th of June 2026. A couple of days ago I made a video and it made people cry. Guess what? I'm not going to stop making videos about the Ukraine war, so keep crying. Alright, the truth matters, folks, and the truth is, as I've said often, no one's winning this shit show. No one's getting out of this with a clean reputation. So why do you support Ukraine? And if you do, why aren't you in Ukraine? Me? I'm just reporting news, baby. So sit back, relax, eat the popcorn, and if you're a Ukraine glazer, bring tissues. Because the news ain't good. Russian breakthrough in Sumy, however, is not good for the Russian supporters as well, because the Russians didn't make it far into Ukraine. In fact, it's just another occupying another border position. Most likely conducted a couple of deep raids, and that's about it. Now, that's most of the time, that's what Russia does. Russia has opened up several times the Northern Front, and so far have only maintained a small presence in above Sumy and above Kharkiv. That's it. Now they have opened up several positions, and now and again they've expanded them, and today they've expanded them further, linking some of them up. Now I thought they would have linked this one up, but they didn't. But they did open up, they have been here before. So that's the way it goes. The Northern Front seems to be very haphazard. Now, the Russians call it the buffer zone, particularly Vladimir Putin. If you ever hear him talking about the buffer zone, he's not just talking about, however, a buffer zone across the north. He is also talking about one in the east. Now, that includes Kupiansk. Now, Kupiansk is, of course, ablaze, but most of the fighting today was elsewhere. Now, Kharkiv, Povala, or Povolsk, Povala. Now, Krumyansk, they got hit very hard. They got hit multiple times, and the Russians hit the substation there multiple times. Now, they only hit Dnipro once today, which is unusual. It's usually Dnipro that gets the whacking. The Ukrainians making some bold claims, but most of the time they turn out to be short-lived. So, as it did. Now, the breakthrough here didn't go far, and only minor changes to the map here again today. Breakthrough at Lyman, but lateral, not. So, they're spreading the front. Still more territory, but it's only on the outskirts still. But that's pretty much the way it's been for most of the battles. Most of the battles are not 24 hours and one and done. Gosh, if this was a 24-hour war, let's see, 300, 400, 500 days at tops. Whereas most of it's slow molasses. Okay. But Russia's still fighting in the forest, but no progress so far. Still fighting over Crater Luka. Russians have taken about a quarter of the town. Russia's increased its front at Byelugia, but hasn't really begun the siege. They are still filling in and spreading out and on their flanks. In other words, securing their position. If you've heard, Ukraine has used these words as well. whenever you hear the word securing position, they basically have a position. So they're going from 2 trenches to 3 trenches to 5 to 7. And they're trying to, usually with the Ukrainian trenches, they tend to zigzag. The Russian trenches seem to be more blocks with gaps between them. Now, both sides use layered defences, both sides use missile artillery, rocket artillery, and I guess the difference between a rocket and a missile is size, but the vast majority of the time it's going to be conventional gun artillery, and even then they are rare. Like, they are not really opening up most of the time. Both sides, however, have acknowledged in the media that Russia does outgun Ukraine by about 50%. Ukraine has complained constantly about artillery shortages, late deliveries, and blaming again late deliveries on the fall of Krasnokovia. Although they did say it was temporary, so, gosh. What would it be? If you ever wondered what life would be like if you were Squidward, look at Zelensky. Failing upwards, folks. Failing upwards. Now, we're looking close at the map today because I'm pretty sure this is a launching point. Now, I would think for artillery on Donetsk, but it could also be to cut, right, to go for here, because I think this is a supply depot, right? Because if you look at the way you move it on the map, if you go over, it's towards. If they go under, it's more to the north. It might have been initially part of the siege of Krasnokovia, which is probably why they're spreading out. Plus, we don't know all the launches. We don't know how well this area has been used and utilised in the past. Military news is fragmented at best. You get 30, 40 stories a day. Sorting through them, you can't take all day to sort through them. It just drives you mad reading. And a lot of the articles overlap each other. But there's definitely continued fighting in Krasnokovia and small advances in and around Krasnokovia. And that could be said, most of the places, there's only small changes. And however, very few. Most of the map has not changed. And that's usually most of the time. Most of the time, there's been no advance. And then suddenly there is a second breakthrough south of Orkiv. And you can see they're getting close now. We're in the Orkiv, this area. So they're within, what's the map say? Damn you. Will you give me the... There's a second ad behind the first ad. So within... I said yesterday 5 kilometers, didn't I? It's actually 5 miles. Yeah. Just, right, so back here, within 5 miles of Orkiv, so they're still, they've what, 100 to, but, so they've only increased their position slightly. They haven't taken any large chunk anywhere, so most of the front is looking pretty much more the same as yesterday. particularly, but yeah. So no major town has fallen, nothing significant on both sides, other than a small breakthrough at Sumni continues. But there were clashes, yeah. So there's more clashes than they're reporting. They're actually reporting a lot more in this column than they are on the maps. A lot of these single dots represent multiple exchanges in multiple directions. Brief reminder that this channel is sponsored by you, the viewing audience. Empire Valves, that's one word. Empire Valves, your one-stop shop for enchanting treasures based on my writing. Thank you for your purchase. I appreciate the support. Now, most of the time, defense news is about US weapon developments. One of Ukraine's primary defense contractor is one of Zelensky's companies, allegedly, Firepoint. Allegedly, they make munitions, bolstering Ukraine's campaign to target deep inside Russia, including deep strike drones. And there's been allegations in multiple media, including the Kiev Independent, that these were linked to cigarette smugglers and other nefarious organizations, and linked to dubious defense contractors. But he's got... Now, Ukraine did get money. We'll get to that later. But with this new round of funding from Europe, they have approved a second long-range attack on Russia. Now, this may seem a familiar story to you, but for many, it may not be. Air launching bombing campaigns from balloons ain't new. Why are they painting this as new? I guess Katie's paid by the word, and she definitely loves to glaze Ukraine with a lot of words. And yeah, she must be paid by the word. All right. Launching a missile from a balloon? Well, there was a Kingsman movie that had Secret Service 2014. Roxy uses high-altitude balloon known as the personal atmospheric vehicle to launch a missile from the stratosphere in order to destroy one of Richard Valentine's satellites, just to break the chain. Now, in World War II, the Japanese did launch thousands of incendiary balloons across the Pacific, which actually did spark some fires in the United States. This story, not all of them made it to most of them didn't make it to the United States, actually. And a lot were shot down over the Pacific by the Lightning II high-altitude fighter. But approximately 300 sightings, and there were some. Most of them fell in the Pacific Northwest, and they, unfortunately, chose winter. Yeah. And most were extinguished before by the weather. However, some did cause casualties, including wiping out an entire family. Now, this story was suppressed for over 50 years. Literally, fugo, meaning foo weapon, was an fire weapon. It was an incendiary device. So there's the idea of an air launch balloon. Ain't you, Katie? Should catch up on your story. Hey, if you did research, you could have gotten some more words into your article. Most of these people write multiple articles per day within a time they ever. I've been offered a job doing it. It's as you know, I can ramble on for ages if I wanted to. Paid by the word, hell yeah. But I unfortunately am not very good at writing propaganda, it seems. Although I often accused of writing propaganda, it turns out that the real propaganda companies don't like my propaganda. Seems like your tone isn't what we are looking for. What? Truth? Yeah, exactly. Truth. Truth is not welcome in the media business, I tell you. And it seems not very welcome out there in La La Land either. Now, Russia has attacked Ukraine with 7 Iskanders and 189 UAVs, and Ukraine is crying about it. Now it's Russia's turn to cry. Russia has noticed Polish mercenaries and female officers. I, in fact, reported this on a month ago that the first female graduates of the Ukrainian army were reported a month ago. I think it was by Poland. Yes, Polish. So are you surprised that a month later female officers with Polish mercenaries would show up in Ukraine if they graduated some female officers from army training in Poland? Oh, that's right. Ukraine claims they were trained in... Yeah. Everything. I mean, it's like everyone has a cry, I guess, sometimes. All right, so we detected poles in the area. Oh, look! It's someone speaking. Oi! Polish sausage! You want a Polish sausage? Yeah. Gosh. All right, I guess when the news is slow, when nothing big happens, when they have to fill in a quota for a story, you're going to get filler. And, yeah. Yeah, but female troops, we knew this was coming. Zelensky mobilised last month, and they'd been training for a year, so... All right, so Ukraine has finally got another European country to capitulate. Now, actually, it's only a proposal to strip all Ukrainian military-age men, although some are saying military-age people. So, is it Ukrainian men? But Zelensky has been trying since 2022 to get countries in Europe to force Ukrainian men to return to Ukraine. It's not a new story. It's just new that Denmark is considering ending protection. All right. Zelensky threatened Belarus and then suddenly declared victory on Belarus. Yeah. Zelensky stated Zelensky has capitulated and shut down the Russian relay stations. No comment. Russian military has made no comment. And the Russian media is making fun of Zelensky, poking holes in his stories, pointing out what a little man he is. Quite frankly, what happens if Belarus is used for air attacks? Ukrainians can fly 300 to 500 kilometers over territory. It would actually shorten the war. Okay, if they increase the size of the front. But of course, the reason why they don't enter the war is because Poland has threatened to enter the war. Well, Poland has entered the war. They just won't admit it. And it'll be like 100 years from now, we'll read how the Polish army helped Ukraine with their victory. And Russia will be sitting there in Crimea saying, victory? What victory? No one will win this war. It is every escalation has led to more deaths, and eventually Ukraine has to de-escalate. Now, they still have mercenaries, but they're not hiring more than they wherever they get new funding, they don't increase the number of mercenaries. As you know, at the start of the war, they did have a volunteer army, and within 6 weeks, the large number of that volunteer army fled, either because of Russian bombing or because of muggings and murders of mercenaries for their paychecks. Quite literally, they just take their paycheck and hand it back to the Ukrainian government for a bounty. Yeah, the Ukrainian government was getting rid of its own mercenaries. But people don't want to know that. But also, people don't want to know that Zelensky wears makeup to cover a mole on his face. But, we all have, I don't care that he has a mole on his face, actually. I think it makes him more human for a change. The fact that he covers it up is a very human weakness. Now, Europe has cut. Now, yes and no. Has Europe cut Ukraine funding? No. The loan is still going ahead. Have they cut the amount of money they give to Ukraine per month out of that loan? Yes, they are stretching the loan instead of unlocking. Now, it was originally 7, then 6.6. Sorry. First payment was originally going to be 7, but then it was delayed, and they received only 5.9 euros. Then they were going to receive, so would have received that money last week or 2 weeks ago. Instead, this week they're going to get 3.2, and the week's almost over, and it actually technically hasn't arrived. Now, Europe has trickled money through banks to Ukraine, but they haven't even gotten to the second payment. And now we're looking at, now Ukraine has a budget deficit of 45 billion. Europe mostly is covering their deficit spending with this new loan. And Hungary is vowing to hold up the 90 billion until they get the pipeline restored. Yeah, well, old story. But why is it back? Because Hungary is threatening to do the same thing now. Although this time they've been backed by Europe, and which they're negotiating, and only some of the funding, and Hungary doesn't have to give them any money. They're trying to please too many people at once. But the ultimate goal of the European Union was supposed to create a universal consensus. But there are certain people, Ursula always lying, who just cannot accept when people do not consensus with her. So she cry. Most of the time, we do not care that she cry. But this is neither here nor there. In the end of the day, Europe is still going to pay Ukraine's bills. They're just going to take longer to do it. Now, that prolongs the war. Either way, let's say Ukraine was winning and Europe was cutting them off for money. That would slow them down, but they'd still be winning. Now, if Russia was winning and Ukraine was desperately begging for that cash and ammunition, well, the reason why they're not begging for ammunition but cash is they are getting ammunition from Poland. They are getting drone technology from Taiwan, and they're getting some ammunition and logistics support from South Korea. And, of course, they're also getting some mercenaries from Colombia and other countries, all paid for by separate European countries around them. and they are getting intelligence support from the majority of Europe. So really, it just comes down to their budgetary spending and their approval. And what this budgetary spending allows them to do is to spend over their GDP without having to borrow the money. So this European loan is allowing them to spend over their allotted budget, but it's only making up their shortfall in other areas. So it's like saying, oh, we're not going to pay for weapons, but if you cut Social Security, we'll fund your Social Security. And what you do with the savings could be for weapons. It's rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. And it's ludicrous. Like it's the sort of stuff that bureaucrats do to basically look like they're doing something. If you are rearranging loans every day over and over and over again, simply to paper shuffle and generate more paper, right? It sounds like politicians just milking the machine, right? That they shouldn't have a job. That they can't figure out what to do in Ukraine. Again, they're not coming up with any new ideas or interesting ideas. Balloons are cheap, though. Yeah, that's what it comes down to. Balloons aren't cheap. But will it reshape their war? It hasn't. Okay? And I think it's also a distraction from how they really get drones into Russia. I honestly think that's a propaganda piece to mislead you. But it also could be a way of making up for the fact that Russia's starting to get very good at detecting Ukrainians and eliminating Ukrainians operating inside Russia. Like those 3 truck drivers they killed in that shootout near Rostov, or last month or month before, I can't remember which now. But recently they made several arrests. They found they shot that guy who pulled a gun on a policeman. Hey, death by cop is not new. But I think most of the time we are seeing a fraction of the story. But I'm trying to bring you as much of the story that is relevant and likely. And if you really want to know what Ukraine blows up, Ukraine will tell you. But half the time, it's a file photo only showing you the top half of a plume of smoke, which could be anywhere at any time. So that's the state of the war. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And hope you'll just at least give me a like. But if you could go the extra mile and support me, well, you can support me on Ko-Fi. Join my Patreon for $1 a month. Buy my books, buy my merch. I appreciate each and every one of you. See you in the next video. Bye for now.